An arrogant champion tried to force a young black Jamaican woman into a fight to embarrass her. But then something unimaginable occurred. "What do we have here?" Victoria Sterling scoffed, gesturing toward the 18-year-old who had just entered the upscale Manhattan boxing facility. "Seems like somebody took a wrong turn on their way to the local community center." The rhythmic sound of gloves striking heavy bags ceased immediately. Every gaze shifted to Keisha Campbell, clutching a weathered gym bag and sporting worn-out athletic shoes. Her rich, dark complexion stood out against the pristine whiteness of this exclusive space, where membership costs exceeded 3 months of minimum wage earnings. Victoria Sterling, reigning women's world boxing title holder for 2 straight years, was renowned not merely for her devastating punches, but for her even more cutting remarks. At 26, she had constructed a reputation built on social media provocations and inflammatory comments that garnered millions of views. Her most recent Instagram upload already boasted 500,000 hearts, a photograph of her displaying her muscular physique with text reading. When you possess natural superiority, pretending equality becomes unnecessary. "Excuse me," Keisha whispered, double-checking the location on her damaged smartphone. "I believe this was the Youth Scholarship Initiative." Victoria's cackle reverberated throughout the gymnasium like a grating alarm. "Scholarship Initiative? Sweetheart, this isn't some charity operation. We develop genuine athletes here, not social justice experiments." Keisha Campbell had reached America merely 6 months prior, carrying with her the aspirations of a Jamaican household that had preserved every dollar to provide her an opportunity. She labored 16 hours daily scrubbing office buildings to afford a bedroom shared with 3 others in the Bronx. The Scholarship Initiative represented her sole opportunity to train at a proper facility. "The program is legitimate," declared a resolute voice. Tom Rodriguez, seasoned trainer and gymnasium proprietor, stepped from his office carrying a document folder. "And Keisha Campbell appears on our approved roster." Victoria rolled her eyes theatrically. "Seriously, Tom? You're transforming my training center into a nonprofit organization? My financial backers won't appreciate this development." Her backers compensate for outcomes, not her perspectives regarding who trains here. Tom responded curtly. However, Victoria wasn't through. She moved toward Keisha wearing a grin that resembled more of a menace. "You understand what? Since you're so eager to train alongside the professionals, let's demonstrate whether you truly belong here." The gymnasium became completely quiet. Everyone recognized what would follow next. "A casual sparring session," Victoria proceeded, relishing each syllable. "You versus me. 3 rounds. If you can endure, you may remain. If not," she made a dismissive wave with her hand. Keisha experienced the pressure of everyone's attention. She understood this was a setup, a public degradation intended to crush her spirit before she could even start. Yet there existed something in her gaze, a fire that Victoria couldn't properly identify, that remained steadfast. "I agree," Keisha stated calmly. Victoria scowled, anticipating tears or begging. "Are you certain? Because once I finish with you, you'll wonder if dreaming so ambitiously is worthwhile." "I'm certain," Keisha repeated, and for the first time since arriving, she smiled. What Victoria Sterling remained unaware was that she was about to discover why, in the Kingston slums of Jamaica, Keisha Campbell was recognized by a very particular moniker, Lightning. And like genuine lightning, she only revealed her authentic power when storms arrived. While Victoria was already scheming how to transform humiliation into viral social media content, Tom Rodriguez observed the determined sparkle in Keisha's eyes and experienced a recognizable chill, the identical sensation he felt when identifying truly exceptional talent disguised as apparent fragility. If this tale of bias and resolve is affecting you, remember to subscribe to our channel, because what transpired during those 3 rounds was so shocking that people still question how an ordinary young woman from the Bronx managed to rewrite the regulations of a sport controlled by the privileged class. Word of the casual match circulated through the gymnasium like wildfire. Within an hour, numerous boxers, trainers, and even some sports reporters were heading over. Victoria Sterling against an unknown Jamaican? It guaranteed to be the type of harsh entertainment that social media enjoyed consuming. 3 rounds, 16-ounce gloves. Tom Rodriguez established, attempting to minimize the approaching devastation. No wagering, no live streaming, simply sparring. Victoria chuckled. Tom, relax. It'll be swift. She probably won't survive to the second round. She was already creating Instagram stories, narrating to her 2 million followers. Folks, you won't believe what's occurring here. Some random girl wants to challenge me. I'm going to deliver a humility lesson she'll never forget. The responses began flooding in, destroy her, Victoria. These individuals need to understand their position. Demonstrate why you're the queen. While Victoria basked in attention, Kisha quietly proceeded to the changing room. Her hands weren't trembling. They never did before fights. But her pulse raced with controlled fury and painful memories she attempted to keep suppressed. Tom followed her. Kisha, this isn't necessary. I understand the scholarship program matters, but risking injury over her arrogance isn't worth it. I won't be injured, Kisha replied calmly, testing the borrowed gloves. She's been world champion for 2 years. She possesses professional technique, knockout strength, experience. And I possess something she'll never have, Kisha interrupted, looking directly into the veteran trainer's eyes. Tom frowned. What might that be? Hunger. The word resonated in the modest changing room. Tom Rodriguez had trained hundreds of athletes during 30 years, but rarely heard that word spoken with such determination. There existed something in Kisha's eyes, an intensity he had recognized only in genuine ring predators. Tell me something, Tom, she said, sitting beside her. Why did you accept it? Why not simply ignore her taunts? Kisha closed her eyes momentarily. The memories flooded back. Kingston streets, her mother's screams begging her to stop fighting, the sensation of fists connecting with surgical accuracy, the nickname Lightning whisper with fear and respect in the slums. Because I've experienced this story previously, she finally said. People like Victoria believe they can destroy us with words, contempt, and certainty that we're inferior. But they forgot something important. What would that be? Those who mature fighting for survival don't fight merely for sport. They fight to exist. Tom felt chills down his spine. There was something prophetic in those words, as if Kisha were revealing not only her motivation, but forecasting Victoria's destiny. Outside, Victoria continued her performance for cell phone cameras. Look at what that girl is wearing, she sneered, indicating Kisha's worn sneakers left in the changing room. I wager she's never even entered a real ring. She probably learned boxing by watching YouTube. Laughter echoed through the gym, but some experienced boxers remained silent. There was something about Kisha's composure, how she had accepted the challenge without hesitation, that stirred instinctive caution. Marcus Williams, a former middleweight champion now training at the gym, whispered to his sparring partner, Man, I don't know. I've witnessed that calmness before. Sometimes the quiet ones prove most dangerous. Victoria, however, was too consumed by her own arrogance to notice warning signs. You understand the problem with people from developing nations. She continued to cameras. They confuse desperation with skill. They think because life is difficult, they automatically understand fighting. Kisha emerged from the changing room at that precise moment, wearing simple shorts and a tank top, revealing surprisingly developed arms for someone supposedly never having trained seriously. Her movements were fluid, economical, like a cat preparing to strike. Ready to learn? Victoria asked sarcastically. Always, Kisha replied. What Victoria Sterling didn't know and could never have imagined was that Lightning Campbell had begun fighting at age 8 on Kingston streets. Not for sport or entertainment, but because it meant survival or starvation. By 12, she was defeating boys 3 years older in underground matches that earned sufficient money to keep her family alive another week. By 16, she had become a local legend, not for brutality, but for her uncanny ability to anticipate moves and counterattack with lightning speed. Hence the nickname she carried like an honor scar. When she finally obtained her United States visa, she promised herself never to enter a ring again. But some promises are meant to be broken when dignity is threatened. Tom adjusted Kisha's gloves, noticing something surprising. Her hands were perfectly relaxed, but her muscles had the density of someone who had trained their entire life. Kisha, may I ask something? Sure. Have you truly never fought before? Kisha smiled for first time since arriving at the gym, a small, almost imperceptible smile, carrying secrets capable of rewriting the entire situation. Define fighting, she replied. At that moment, while Victoria continued her social media performance and spectators mentally wagered on how long the amateur would last, something extraordinary was about to occur. Sometimes, when we underestimate someone based on appearances and preconceptions, we discover that real predators are exactly those who have learned to camouflage their strength until a precise moment to reveal it. While Victoria Sterling continued her humiliation campaign on social media, she had already posted 17 stories mocking the Jamaican amateur. Something completely different was happening behind the scenes at the gym. Tom Rodriguez had decided to investigate Kisha Campbell further. 30 years of training boxers had taught him that true strength rarely shouts, and there was something about this young woman that defied all logic. Her hands didn't have beginner's calluses. Her reflexes were too quick. And above all, her calmness was unnatural for someone about to face a world champion. "Kisha," Tom called when she finished adjusting her gloves. "Can I observe you perform some basic movements? Just to assess your level." What occurred over the next 5 minutes made Tom question everything he thought he knew about natural talent. Kisha moved around the ring with fluidity that seemed to defy gravity. Her strikes on the heavy bag had surgical precision he had only witnessed in fighters with decades of experience. "My goodness," Tom muttered to himself. "Who is this girl really?" At that moment, the gym door opened and someone entered who made Kisha freeze completely. It was Winston Campbell, a 50-year-old man with scarred hands and eyes that had seen much. Her uncle, who had flown from Miami as soon as he heard about the fight, through a mutual cousin. "Lightning," Winston said simply. The nickname echoed through the gym like a gunshot. Some older boxers frowned, as if trying to remember where they had heard that name before. "Uncle Winston, what are you doing here?" Kisha asked, her voice betraying nervousness for the first time. "I came to see if my niece has completely lost her mind," he replied in English with a thick Jamaican accent. "I thought we agreed those days were behind us." Tom approached, intrigued. "Do you two know each other?" Winston looked at Tom with the expression of someone deciding how much truth to reveal. "I've known this girl since she was 8 years old, and I can assure you that Victoria Sterling has no idea what she's about to face." While this conversation occurred in the ring's corner, Victoria was on the gym's other side, recording more TikTok content. "Guys, look at this," she whispered to the camera. "She even brought her family to watch her get humiliated. How sweet, right? They'll have plenty to console her about later." The comments on her post had exploded. "Victoria is going to destroy that girl. Teach her not to mess with Americans. Show her what real boxing is." Winston watched Victoria for several seconds, then shook his head disapprovingly. Arrogant, just the type Lightning used to. Well, let's just say she taught humility on Kingston streets. "Uncle, please," Kisha begged. "Don't tell anyone. I don't want anyone to know." "Know what?" asked Tom, growing more curious. Winston sighed deeply. "Tom, may I call you that? You seem like a decent man. So I'm going to tell you something that might change your perspective on this fight." He pointed to Kisha, who was now training alone in the corner. "That girl over there was considered the best street fighter Kingston ever produced." "Street fighter," Tom repeated. At 12, she defeated men 3 times her size. By 15, she had a reputation that made gangsters respect her. Lightning Campbell wasn't just a nickname. It was a warning. Winston paused. "She stopped fighting when she got her visa to come here. She swore she'd never set foot in a ring again." Tom looked at Kisha with new eyes. "Then why did she agree to fight Victoria?" "Because," Winston said, "some people confuse kindness with weakness, and Lightning never tolerated being underestimated because of her color, her gender, or her background." Across the gym, Victoria had finished another series of posts mocking Kisha and was now talking to her manager on the phone. "Michael, this is going to go viral. A world champion against an amateur? It's the kind of content sponsors love. Total domination. Just make sure you don't hurt her too badly, Victoria," said the manager's voice over the speakerphone. "We don't want any lawsuits for bodily injury." Victoria laughed loudly. Michael, relax. It'll be so quick, she won't have time to hurt herself seriously. Winston overheard this conversation, and his eyes narrowed. Tom, may I give you some advice? What? Bet on Lightning. Why? Because Victoria Sterling may be a world champion, but she's never fought for survival. She's never faced someone who learned that losing means not eating. Lightning isn't here to look pretty. She's here to prove a point. At that moment, Kisha approached them, sweat dripping down her face after her intense workout. Uncle Winston, what are you telling Tom? Truth, kid, that you're not the helpless victim that American thinks you are. Kisha looked around the gym, noticing that some other boxers were now watching her with renewed curiosity and respect. Uncle, I really don't want to... Don't want to what? Show them who you really are? Lightning. You spent the last few months cleaning toilets because you wanted to start a new life. But when someone tries to humiliate you because of your color, your background, your past, no new life can erase what's in your blood. Tom felt a chill. Kisha, may I ask you something? What? Why did you really accept this fight? Kisha was silent for a long moment, staring at Victoria, who continued recording content from the gym's other side. When she finally spoke, her voice had a hardness Tom had never heard before. Because people like Victoria Sterling think they can diminish us, humiliate us, put us in our place based solely on the color of our skin or where we came from. She looked at me and saw an easy victim, a story for her social media, a joke to entertain her followers. Kisha paused. What she doesn't know is that where I grew up, respect isn't given, it's earned. And when someone tries to take away our dignity, she smiled, but there was something predatory about that smile. Well, sometimes lightning has to remind people why storms are feared. At that moment, as Victoria Sterling continued her arrogant performance to the cameras, completely oblivious to the conversation that was changing everything just a few feet away, everyone in the gym realized they were about to witness something far beyond a simple friendly fight. It was a moment when years of silent humiliation would finally find their voice through the fists of someone who had learned, on the world's hardest streets, that sometimes the only language certain people understand is force applied with surgical precision. The bell rang, and the two fighters met in the ring center. Victoria went on the attack immediately, throwing a flurry of quick jabs that sliced through the air where Kisha had been a millisecond earlier. What the hell? Victoria muttered, frowning as she saw her punches connect with nothing but air. Kisha moved like smoke, always one step ahead, always out of reach. Her feet glided across the canvas with fluidity that defied physics, as if she could predict every move before Victoria even thought it. Stay still, girl, Victoria shouted in frustration, increasing the force of her punches. Then it happened. At the exact moment Victoria lost her balance after a poorly calculated cross, Kisha counterattacked. Her left fist connected with the side of Victoria's face with a sharp sound that echoed throughout the gym. Victoria staggered backward, touching her face in disbelief. She had never been hit with such precision by a smaller opponent. Impossible, she whispered, but Kisha was already moving again. What followed was a demonstration of martial artistry that reduced the gym to absolute silence. Kisha wasn't just fighting. She was conducting a symphony of controlled violence. Every punch was calculated. Every movement had purpose. Every dodge seemed choreographed. Victoria, desperate, tried to use her weight and reach advantage, but it was like attempting to catch lightning with her hands. For every blow she landed, she received 3 in return. For every advance she made, Kisha had already anticipated and counterattacked. Who is this girl? Someone in the audience shouted. Winston smiled from where he watched. Lightning Campbell, he murmured proudly. The moment of truth came in the second round. Victoria, already panted with her face marked, realized she had made the biggest mistake of her career. Her arrogant social media posts continued to be shared, but now the comments had completely changed in tone. Victoria is getting beaten up by an amateur. Where's the world champion? That Jamaican is destroying her. Jerry, her manager, shouted frantic instructions in the corner, but Victoria could barely hear him over the roar of the crowd, which was now openly rooting against her. That's when Kisha decided to show her true colors. Lightning was never just a nickname, she said calmly, approaching Victoria, who was backing away against the ropes. It was a warning. The combination that followed was so fast that the cell phone cameras could barely capture it. Jab, cross, hook, uppercut. 4 punches in less than 2 seconds, all connecting with surgical precision. Victoria collapsed onto the canvas like a demolished building. The gym exploded. People screamed, cheered, filmed everything for social media. Victoria tried to get up, but her legs wouldn't respond. For the first time in her life, the undefeated world champion had been knocked out by someone she had called a social project. 10, shouted Tom, officiating the fight. Knockout. Kisha calmly walked over to the corner where Victoria was being treated. You said you wanted to teach me a lesson, she said softly. I hope you learn that respect isn't earned by color, nationality, or bank account. It's earned by character. Victoria looked at Kisha with eyes filled with tears of humiliation, and for the first time, something that could be respect. Jerry rushed over to check Victoria's phone. Her stories mocking Kisha had gone viral, but now for completely different reasons. Thousands of comments ridiculed her arrogance. Victoria again destroyed by the person she called an amateur. That's what happens when prejudice meets reality. Lightning Campbell ended Victoria's career in 3 rounds. Oh my God, Victoria, Jerry said, showing her his phone. You have to see this. Your account lost 100,000 followers in the last hour. Sponsors are canceling their contracts. Victoria took her phone with trembling hands. Her last post mocking Kisha had become a memorial to her own humiliation. The comments were merciless. Who laughed last, laughed best. Jamaican taught that race is a lesson. Lightning Campbell, arrogant Victoria. Tom approached Kisha, who was being celebrated by the entire audience. Lightning, may I ask you something? Sure. Why didn't you tell them who you really were from beginning? Kisha looked at Victoria, who was still being helped to her feet, completely defeated physically and emotionally. Because sometimes people need to dig their own grave before they understand the size of the hole they've gotten themselves into. Winston hugged his niece proudly. You're still Lightning. No, Uncle, Kisha replied, watching Victoria being led out of the gym under a barrage of sarcastic comments. Lightning was who I needed to be to survive. Today I showed who I really am, someone who doesn't accept disrespect, but who fights for dignity, not cruelty. As the cameras continued to roll and videos of the knockout went viral on social media, one question hung in the air. Could a single fight rewrite not only 2 careers, but the way an entire community views prejudice, privilege, and the true measure of human strength? 3 months later, the contrast couldn't be more brutal. Victoria Sterling, once an undefeated world champion, sat in a modest apartment she had rented after losing her Miami mansion. Her sponsors had canceled all contracts after the viral video reached 50 million views in a week. Victoria Sterling getting destroyed by the woman she called an amateur had become the most shared. Meme of the year, turning her arrogance into a global joke. Nike, Adidas, Gatorade, all the brands that once paid millions for her image now refuse to even return her calls. Jerry, her former manager, had been clear in their last conversation. Victoria, you don't understand. It's not just about the fight you lost. It's about who you showed yourself to be. No one wants to associate their brand with prejudice and arrogance. Meanwhile, on the other side of the country, Kisha Campbell was signing her first professional contract with Golden Gloves Promotions. The value? $2 million for just the first 3 fights, with a renewal clause that could reach $50 million if she kept up her performance. Lightning Campbell had become not just a sporting phenomenon, but a symbol of resilience. Brands that valued authenticity and overcoming adversity lined up to sponsor her. Under Armour launched an entire line inspired by her story. Earned, not given. Tom Rodriguez was in the gym office when he received an unexpected call. Hello, Tom. This is ESPN. We want to make a documentary about how you discovered Lightning Campbell. I didn't discover anything, Tom replied honestly. She always knew who she was. She just needed someone to respect her before seeing her fists in action. The transformation of the gym had also been dramatic. The scholarship program, once a modest initiative, now received donations from across the country. Young people from disadvantaged communities arrived daily, inspired by Kisha's story. The waiting list had more than 500 names. Winston Campbell visited his niece regularly, always with the same pride shining in his eyes. "Remember what I said about hunger?" he asked during one of his visits. "You prove that it's not about where we come from, but about the fire we carry inside." Victoria, for her part, had tried several times to reinvent herself. She created a YouTube channel apologizing, but the comments were merciless. She tried to return to boxing, but no major promoter would accept her terms. Her savings quickly evaporated without the income from sponsorships. In a desperate interview for a third-rate podcast, Victoria finally said the words she should have said months earlier. "I was completely wrong." Kisha Campbell wasn't just an exceptional fighter. She was a person I should have respected from the very beginning. My prejudice blinded me to her greatness. But the internet has a long memory. The clip became a meme again. Victoria tried to apologize after losing everything. Kisha, when she heard about the interview, showed the class that had always set her apart. "I don't have any anger toward her," she said during an interview with Sports Illustrated magazine. "Hatred consumes those who carry it. I'd rather use my energy building bridges for other young women like me." Her foundation, Lightning Dreams, had already helped 300 young women from disadvantaged communities obtain scholarships and sports opportunities. The foundation's first gym was to be opened in Kingston, Jamaica, in the same community where she had discovered that her fists could be more than weapons for survival. During the opening ceremony, broadcast live around the world, Kisha held the microphone with the same hands that had knocked out a world champion. "This story is not about revenge," she said, her voice echoing through the speakers. "It's about dignity. It's about proving that respect is not earned by privilege, but by character." The audience erupted in applause, but she wasn't finished. "Victoria Sterling gave me the greatest gift of her life. She underestimated me. And when someone underestimates you, you have a choice. You can let it destroy you, or you can use it as fuel to become unbeatable." Tom Rodriguez, watching from the front row, wiped away a discreet tear. He had trained champions for decades, but he had never seen anyone transform humiliation into inspiration with such elegance. Months later, when Lightning Campbell became the unified world champion, knocking out her opponent in the same second round, she had defeated Victoria. The first person she thanked in her speech was not her trainer, nor her family. "I want to thank all the people who tried to put me down, humiliate me, and put me in my place. You taught me that true power doesn't come from where we're born or the color of our skin. It comes from an absolute refusal to accept that others define our limits." Victoria Sterling watched that fight on television in her rented apartment, alone. When the referee raised Kisha's hand, declaring her the new world champion, Victoria finally understood the difference between talent and greatness. A person can be born with talent, but greatness is forged in the furnace of adversity. Kisha Campbell hadn't just won a fight in that Manhattan gym. She had rewritten the rules about what it means to be strong, about what it means to deserve respect, and most importantly, about how the best revenge isn't destroying your enemy. It's becoming everything they said you could never be. And while Lightning Campbell shone in the spotlight of global success, proving that some storms don't destroy but purify and strengthen, a lesson echo over anyone who has ever been underestimated, humiliated, or diminished. Never let anyone define your limits based on prejudice. The greatest victory is proving them completely wrong about who you really are. If the story of transformation and justice touch your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories that prove that sometimes being underestimated is exactly the advantage we need to rewrite our own story in spectacular fashion.